I have a lot of opinions to enact, to just share and unpack multiple perspectives, you know. So like there are scandals and then there are systems. This is not just like the story of one man. This is the story of how power shields itself. Do you get? Like how institutions literally hesitate and how silence becomes currency. So Epstein, or whatever the fuck he calls himself, Jeffrey Epstein, was not just a household name for decades. He actually presented himself as a financial, cultivated influence. He surrounded himself with academics, billionaires, even presidents. Yet, this person could be responsible for so much evil. They are crimes and then they are revelations, not like the apocalyptic kind written in fire, but the kind that actually exposes the architecture of corruption. And when I actually heard about this whole story of Jeffrey Epstein, for me, I think it was about a system. Like, if I'm going to look at it from a spiritual perspective or from a spiritual psychology, right? So, a lot of suppression, desire without accountability, power without morality, pleasure without consequence. You know, what happens? This whole, um, this whole crime, this whole thing going on, this whole situation that is obviously going on with the Epstein case. You know, this explains what happens when wealth insulates conscience and when influence actually outspaces justice. Most importantly, when institutions choose comfort over courage, you know, it is spiritual decay. And for years, Epstein actually operated inside elite circles, politicians, you know, people of power and influence and affluence. Understanding that influence creates gravity, and spiritually, influence that is unchecked creates a distortion, you know. There's actually an ancient principle that echoes across all traditions. What is hidden will eventually be revealed, you know. Even in the Bible, it was said, nothing is concealed that will not be disclosed. Not as a superstition, but it's a law that everything will come to light. Everything done in the dark will come to light, will eventually come to light. So systems built on exploitation eventually will collapse under their own secrecy, you know. Now, this case actually reveals more than personal wrongdoing. It exposes failures, institutional protection, cultural silence around abuse, emphasis on abuse, the power of reputation to override truth, most importantly, narrative, you know, the power of narrative, how people can develop a certain narrative that is not true and sell it. People would actually believe this narrative because of the power and influence that accompanies it. The power of narrative. So, spiritually, for me, I think this whole thing actually reflects a collective karma. Not like a mystical punishment, but consequences embedded in action. So, when systems protect predators to protect their status, they sacrifice innocence for image. That will eventually create a spiritual depth. And guess what? Depth always surfaces. So, like, I've always had this weird feeling, you know, right from while I was very young. I've always felt like there is really something spiritually intoxicating about quote unquote elite people, you know, the access, the prestige, the exclusivity, like this sort of people or environments, they carry the power to distort moral perception. Like, look at it like when proximity to power becomes currency, discernment weakens, right? Now, one key lesson here is not everyone who sits at powerful tables is spiritually elevated. Influence is not enlightenment. Visibility is not virtue. Wealth is not wisdom. So, according to like the FBI investigation going on with this whole Epstein case, right? In 2019 or so, according to the story I heard, allegedly, Epstein was actually arrested again on federal charges and he died in jail, obviously, under circumstances that fueled widespread speculations. But spiritually, speculation is less important than reflection. That's how I see it. The real question is not what conspiracy hides. The deeper question is, what does this reveal about our collective structure? How easily we idolize status over people. How quickly institutions protect themselves. How often victims go unheard until exposure becomes unavoidable. Victims are silenced, you know, and this is being done by people who are in power, who are placed in certain positions that are obligated, you know, in terms of their duty to protect certain people, you know. Any spiritual analysis will center truth. The true gravity of this whole case lies with the victim. Young girls, literally, young girls whose lives will forever not remain the same. Traumatized? No, altered. Definitely altered. Their pain is not symbolic. The trauma is not even allegory. Justice, spiritually speaking, is not even vengeance.